Your Life and Sex Island, Chapter 5, picking up the tab, page 109. We know that the Supreme Court has ruled, not just said, but actually ruled, that buying politicians or even the whole damn government is free speech. We also know without any equivocation that that Supreme Court ruling is absolutely correct. How do we know that the Supreme Court ruling is absolutely correct, inerrant, and infallible? We know because they, the Supreme Court collectively, like the Pope individually, is inerrant and infallible by definition. Now, the Pope speaks for God. The Supreme Court does not speak for God. The Supreme Court is above God. There is no higher authority. You can appeal lower opinions all the way up to the Supreme Court, but there is no appeal for the Supreme Court rulings. The Supreme Court is the highest authority. Now, every member of the Supreme Court did not agree that buying the government was free speech. Some members erred, but you will be happy to know that every member who agreed that it is free speech to buy the government was indeed Catholic. This puts them in league with the Pope, so we have the double assurance that they were speaking for God and down to God. That gives us all a warm and tender feeling, knowing that the rich, particularly when buying the government through their corporations, are seemingly, in fact, speaking for and down to God. Since only humans can speak fluently, and the Supreme Court has now said that corporations can speak louder than any of us lower, ordinary humans, it is obvious that the Supreme Court has instilled or recognized the installation of souls, actually super souls, in corporations. Therefore, even if a corporation dies by one means or another, his soul is immortal. If the corporation has not committed a mortal sin, his soul will go to heaven. But the Catholic Church teaches that a soul cannot go to heaven if he has not been baptized in the Catholic Church. My wife and I and two of our kids own a tiny little corporation. At the next Board of Directors meeting, I will move that we have our corporation baptized. I have grown fond of him and would not like, in the tiny slim chance that if I should go to heaven, I would not have him beside me in the everlasting. I was, it goes without saying, delighted when the Supreme Court seemed to direct that corporations have souls and the right of free speech. Fortunately, the Constitution protects free speech, so you can buy congressmen, senators, and much more. Now we get to the actual wording in the Constitution that the court incorrectly relied upon. Amendment 1, quote, freedom of religion, press, expression, ratified 12/15/1791. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the right of the people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. For some reason, the Supreme Court glommed onto that, quote, or abridging the freedom of speech, unquote, phrase here. And the gentlemen and gentle ladies of the Supreme Court know how to read, and if they don't know how to read, someone can read it to them. But you can read to a horse from paper, but you can't make him think. Since the money flingers buy lawmakers and law signers from both sides of the aisle, money invested in law grinders clearly is not about better government or ensuring my ideology. It is about the business investment of buying part or all of the government. I did not read the arguments in the case, nor does anyone need to unless the comics are on strike, but only a liar or an idiot would claim that buying politicians has anything to do with free speech. It is far from free. I have a huge respect for the Supreme Court, just as I have respect for someone holding a gun to my head in a dark, deserted alley. The justices control more guns than all of the generals. Actually, they control the generals. Unfortunately, putting a robe and powdered wig, they still use powdered wigs, don't they, as in Bleak House and the Hunchback of Notre Dame, putting a powdered wig on a numbskull and letting him sit behind a hand-carved desk does not instill wisdom. Hugo's judge for the humpback was deaf and, when distracted, blind. Hasn't been much improvement since then. When in the 2000 presidential election, the members of the Supreme Court said, "To stop counting the votes, we want to appoint the president," I realized that they had not read the Constitution, or if they did not comprehend it, or yet they did not respect it. Most likely the latter. They are ward healers of the meanest sort, who see and use the law as a means of tormenting those with whom they disagree politically or religiously, or who do not come up to their social standards. Inquisition and Salem witch judges were also quite dignified and wore the trappings of authority and the power of the sword. I don't recall if the scales were balanced or not, nor do I know what they were weighing. The lower the judge, the higher his dignity. I am surprised that the Supreme Court judges do not wear ermine-trimmed robes, or do they? Had they, our honorable servants on the Supreme Court, the sagacity of the average busboy, they would have seen immediately that purchasing politicians has nothing to do with religion, speech, press, assembly, or petition. It has to do with commerce. No one with any humble religion, if such exists, would tolerate purchasing politicians. No one who trusted free speech would sanction such purchases. Such bargains are the enemies of any self-respecting journalist, if such exists. Such commerce is quite the opposite of assembly, since it is always done in as much secrecy as can be mustered. And finally, one does not buy the government, does not intend to petition the government for redress of grievances. One does not petition one's paid agents. One directs the agents and they obey, or else. The applicable constitutional clause, if any clause is to be applied, is, quote, Section 8, Powers of Congress. No preference shall be given by any regulation of commerce or revenue to the ports of one state over those of another, nor shall vessels bound to or from one state be obliged to enter, clear, or pay duties in another, end quote. Since presidents, senators, and congressmen are clearly vessels, an obvious 18th century misspelling of the word vassal, it is clear that they are commodities which can be bought and sold, and as such, political purchases, sometimes erroneously euphemistically referred to as donations or contributions, are perfectly allowable within the Constitution, or more legally, are protected by the Commerce Clause, Section 8 of the Constitution. Purchase the book now by clicking on the link in the description below.